Titled Mind Control and Accountability, Uncovering the Truth of the CIA's MKUltra Project, the hearing was led by Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who highlighted the widespread destruction of files when the program eventually came to an end, telling us after what occurred is, quote, criminal in nature.
It's obviously horrifying. It's horrifying that this went unvetted, unchecked, and that there was no accountability.
On Capitol Hill Tuesday, Representative Luna spearheading efforts to uncover the truth about MKUltra experiments, sharing that the CIA is working to declassify recently discovered files involving a forgery program, plus highlighting the widespread destruction of files.
This program, when it did end, the men who ran it did not cooperate with investigators. They did not come forward. They committed another crime. They destroyed evidence.
MKUltra was a top-secret illegal experimentation program run by the CIA from 1953 to 1973. It was designed to develop mind control techniques, brainwashing procedures, and truth serums used for espionage, interrogation, and psychological torture.
I do believe that the government should compensate victims and their families, specifically pertaining to this awful program. We also heard that there was horrifying experimentation taking place at juvenile detention facilities on American wayward children.
Speaking with the National News Desk Tuesday, Luna adding she believes there needs to be a task force put together, possibly by the DOJ, noting they were just made aware of a CIA house in Germany that allegedly tortured victims of MKUltra.
So we're actually reaching out to the German government. I actually have, coincidentally enough, meetings tomorrow with some members of their parliament to see if we can basically send out law enforcement to see if we're able to locate remains and identify the people potentially that were hurt by this program.
Now, among those testifying, investigative journalist Tom O'Neill, sharing that historical records show previous investigators and lawmakers 50 years ago were allegedly intentionally denied the truth regarding the program.
Representatives of the CIA told Congress and the American people that its 25-year effort to control human behavior had been a colossal failure. I believe Congress was never told the truth about what this program actually achieved.
Meanwhile, Luna argues, according to witness testimony, it looks like those participating in the program were able to effectively crack the code on programming humans, which makes their job to identify and correct historical records pivotal.
But also, to ensure that this never happens again, we have to be able to identify it currently and how it's evolved potentially, which is what we're trying to do currently.
Now, according to Luna, MKUltra was comprised of at least 149 sub-projects operating across 80 institutions and involved 185 non-government researchers. That allegedly includes a $375,000 CIA contribution to a hospital research wing so the agency could use unaware patients as experimental subjects. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
It's important that we consider that we've got the same people in place, and it's just a small handful of criminals, and it's absolutely inexcusable that we continue to leave them in power. After my father came back from Boston, Massachusetts, I was subjected to extensive, systematic abuses. The sexual abuse that I had endured was extending into ritual abuse and more tortures. The ritual abuse that I experienced within our local Catholic Church was very deliberate for the purposes of mind control. It's not to say that all Catholics are bad. There's some very, very good, concerned Catholics who are as outraged as you and I are that that kind of abuse is going on in the church. They're as outraged as we became when we began to learn about this Boston connection. When we started hearing about the child abuse that was emanating out of Boston. It wasn't just child abuse, although that's absolutely horrific enough. It was a very systematic form of mind control, very much a part of MKUltra. I've been talking about that Boston connection for over a decade. And I'm so glad to see that it's finally coming to light. And yet the most key part of what's actually going on has been left out of the equation once again. Mind control, understanding mind control, gives us a comprehension of what we're actually seeing and gives us an understanding of numerous aspects of not only what we're seeing in society, but on a global scale as well. Because it's the common thread that ties everything together. It's that last piece of the puzzle that pulls the whole picture into focus, where we can actually fully understand what it is we're seeing. Because once we understand it, we no longer have to fear it. We're no longer left to superstition. We're no longer left to fearing what's coming next, what's coming next. Instead, we know. We know exactly what's going on, and we can think beyond what we're being told. We can think beyond what the media allows us to know. We can expand our thinking and learn to stand strong with a strength of spirit and soul conviction to make a positive difference in our own lives and in our own little areas of society. And ultimately that will expand further and further and further. But it begins with awareness. The abuse that I was enduring under MKUltra mind control was so extensive that I lost all my awareness. I lost my ability to reason. I lost my ability to question anything. More and more, I could only do exactly what I was told to do with no ability to hope anymore, that there was some place. Not only was my whole environment saturated with this abuse, but I couldn't even think anymore to hope that there was some place where people were kind. I began losing my ability to think from about the age of 6 on, and it was quite an extensive progression over the next several years. This included going to the governor's mansion in Mackinac Island, Michigan. At that time, George Romney was the governor of Michigan, and he was very much interested in taking a powerful form of mind control gleaned from the Catholics, taken from the CIA and the Hitler-Himmler research, and also into the technological advancements, and put it into his Mormon church. George Romney was very active and very high up in the Mormon church, and they could foresee that as a strong opportunity for being able to lead people in a religious way. People are easily led by a religion because they do want to do what God tells them to do, but the religion that they're being taught is outside themselves, when in fact that spirituality and relationship with God is within. And yet religion can pull people down a path outside themselves where they're more easily led and controlled, particularly when systematic abuses are going on and MKUltra mind control and technological advances are being used as strong as they were in the Mormon church. That's not to say all Mormons are bad. There's quite a few Mormons who are standing up once they're able to think for themselves to make a positive difference and stop the abuse in their churches as well. But that's a little bit slower. The devastation wreaked on people within the Mormon church is extensive, and it's very much like the abuses that go on in the Jehovah's Witnesses church that is just coming to light, where their mind control is so prevalent there as well. And every time where the mind control is prevalent, there's always abuse, and it's usually sexual abuse of the children. We need to become aware of how people are being led this way. When we have politics that have no separation of church and state, it allows for them to dictate or to provide the information through the churches on a political agenda as well. And it's a very dangerous and a very powerful combination, yet nevertheless is all moving towards the same goal of a mind control of the masses. In Mackinac Island, Michigan, I also heard George Romney talk about what is now known as global education, where bringing a form of mind control into the education system and altering the history, and also pumping information into the children's head at a rate to where they lose their ability to discern and to creatively utilize the information, but nevertheless it's just being pumped into their head, especially with the onset of computerization and harmonics coming through the headphones while they're sitting at some of those computers. The computers were also deliberately designed to alter the history that they were being taught, because it was believed that to control the future, all they needed to do was control the history. Again, alter that knowledge base so that when they do formulate any thought or action, it's based on something that's totally false or is something that's lacking key elements, such as mind control, such as what really went on in Nazi Germany.
And welcome to We're the People. This is your host, Jason and Alexia Preston. Thank you for joining us today. We have an incredible show. We're very honored, excited. This is very special to have the guests that we have. But before I have Alexia introduce our special guest, I want to thank all of you for standing, all of you for being involved. Some people say, what can I do? What can I do? And I see you in the comments battling and speaking for truth and choosing to be seen and not choosing to be hidden. And thank you. Thank you to survivors for coming out and saying the things that need to be said, for exposing the darkness and showing us the way. And those of you who are not survivors, but who are born with a heart that feels and eyes that see, thank you for standing. Thank you for we have people that are getting together, groups that are getting together. There is so much happening right now, and it's you guys who are out there leading it, and all those of you out there who are choosing to stand in your callings, who are organizing, who are getting involved in different ways, not waiting for us or expecting us to give direction because it's not our role, but just taking initiative. Thank you for all you're doing. Last, before I turn the time over to my beautiful wife, make sure you go to our website, wearethepeople.org, and sign up for the newsletter so in the case that happens, we can get that for you. With that being said, Alexia, it's always good to have you, and I'm excited for our guest. Do you want to introduce her?
Yes, no, we are absolutely honored to have today to welcome one of the most powerful voices I think we have in the fight for truth and survivor healing, Cathy O'Brien. For those that you don't know, Cathy is a recovered survivor of child sex trafficking and the CIA's MKUltra project, similar to J.R. Sweet, and we could put the link to J.R.'s show, which is part of the MKUltra Project Monarch mind control program. Born into generational trauma, Cathy has endured years of programming designed to shatter the human spirit and create compliance. Through incredible resilience and support from her partner, Mark, she reclaimed her voice, her mind, and her freedom. She's the author of the groundbreaking books like Transformation of America and Access Denied, which detail her experiences and expose systematic patterns of control, trafficking, and institutional secrecy. Her healing work, including the trilogy focused on PTSD recovery and aligning with divine love, has helped countless others on their own journeys. With the recent congressional hearings on MKUltra making headlines, Cathy's testimony is more relevant now than ever. Today, we will amplify her voice and her story to uncover truth, push for some accountability. Hopefully, we'll finally get some around here, especially when it comes to protecting children and breaking cycles of abuse. Cathy's story does exactly that. It shines the light on darkness while offering real pathways to healing, free thought, and awakening. Cathy, thank you so much for being here with us today and your courage in speaking out. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Well, what a profound introduction, and what a profound mission you all have taken on, bringing this truth to light and opening people's eyes to the reality of what's been going on, really, literally my whole life. And it's time people are aware, because awareness is the first step towards positive, necessary change. They need truth that makes us free. And it's great to be here and share that with you all.
Isn't it? It just feels like such right now a God thing, how all this is coming to light, from Epstein to, survivors coming forward. You've got Sean Ryan. You have so many people, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. I mean, everyone is starting to talk about it. It is, and it feels like it is just, and even in Congress, it's now coming up. And for someone like you who has been like shouting from the rooftops since the early '90s, and for the most part, I'm sure like no one's wanted to believe this stuff. What are your thoughts about what's happening right now? Tell us how you feel about things.
I'm deeply encouraged that people are finally hearing about MKUltra in such a comprehensive way, because knowledge is our defense against mind control. And MKUltra mind control has been creeping into society and infiltrating every sacred aspect of our lives for generations now. And it's time we realize that, and the secrets are finally being exposed. So I'm especially excited about these MKUltra hearings, and Representative Luna and Representative Mace and the others are, laying a strong foundation and groundwork for opening people's eyes to learn to embrace that reality, because it's imperative that people wake up. We got to realize that an act of Congress is not going to stop this invisible menace. It's going to take each and every one of us to wake up and know who we are, why we're here, and start living our life's purpose, because we're in the midst of a mental and spiritual evolution. And we've got to have effective truth in order to protect our children going forward. In my lifetime, the child sex trafficking that I was born into and thrust into as far as a little bitty toddler has now become one of the most lucrative businesses on the planet. How did that happen? How did our children become so sexualized? How did it become a blackmail operation that has kept so much of the world complicit in this crime against humanity? And we gotta, once we understand MKUltra mind control, we understand how that happened, because the pedophile agenda that's been pushed so hard is a mind control agenda. And that's something that people need to realize, that our humanity has been under attack for a long time in order to dumb us down and align us with a slave society globalist agenda and align us with artificial intelligence. Yeah. Artificial intelligence is really stupid. It doesn't have, the strength of the human spirit. It doesn't have that infinite wisdom. It doesn't have the power of love. It doesn't have the vastness of the miracles that unfold around us all the time to be factored into their equation.
Right.
So our humanity is under attack, and our children are the ones who are being targeted the hardest. We got to wake up and embrace that fact.
Absolutely. And, as I sit here with you and it's with our audience, I would just like to think about what matters more in our world than this topic. If what we are saying is true with MKUltra, if there is this evil that has infiltrated our government, our churches, and society, if there are these secret organizations and combinations that are feeding on our children, if this is real, tell me what in the world could possibly be as important as understanding this, because this is the tool of the enemy to enslave us. And I believe this is the issue of our day, and it is biblical. This is a biblical issue, and there is nothing more important. And I believe what we are seeing is true spiritual warfare. And we were sent for this time, and we cannot understand the war we are in, the world we live in, without understanding the enemy, his tactics, and his desire that he's always had to enslave humanity and take away our free will. And his tool he uses is MKUltra and mind control. And he does it specifically, targets on certain individuals, which we've been exposing here in Utah, and Cathy's going to talk about it, but it's also something that they use on society at large. And so with that being said, Alexia, do you have any thoughts before we get to have her introduce her stellar story?
No, I think it would just be really great for our viewers and listeners to hear your story from the beginning, because it is such a profound story and you are such a pioneer in the world of SRA and mind control. So I just am excited to hear it from you and share that with our audience.
Well, I appreciate it. I am a survivor of CIA MKUltra mind control. I was used on a White House Pentagon level. I was deep in the swamp among these perpetrators who steal elections, use drug and human trafficking across open borders to fund their globalist agenda, and who are using mind control to usher in what Adolf Hitler first termed a new world order. And I bring up Adolf Hitler because it was in the wake of World War II through Project Paperclip that the United States imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S. With them came the formula for mind control. And that formula is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a church, a military, or the world. Trauma is the basis of it. And the formula includes trauma and fear and sleep, food, and water deprivation. Anything that shuts down the neuron pathways in our brilliant brains is what they use for mind control. And we need our brains firing properly. And knowledge is our defense against mind control. So as quickly as that formula was brought into the U.S., the 1947 National Security Act went into place to cover up these crimes and keep it secret. Secrecy is imperative to them. And then the CIA was formed to carry it out. And by the time I was born in Muskegon, Michigan in 1957, MKUltra mind control was already in full swing. The CIA was already using it. And I was born into a multi-generational incest-based family. My father was sexually and ritually abused. My mother was sexually abused and trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, where the secrets on mind control were kept, is in these secret societies and these secret meeting places and all. And the secret that they were keeping is in regards to our own mind-brain function, how our brains respond to trauma. It had been found in Hitler-Himmler research that there's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while the brain is still forming. That shuts down neuron pathways in the brain and keeps them shut down through a lifetime, making them compliant, easily led, and lacking critical analysis-free thought. So that's why the children are targeted. They found that ritual abuse is the second most horrific trauma on the human mind. Blood traumas, the satanic ritual abuse. So those two traumas were being imposed on humanity in full force, and something that, because I was born into a family already using those traumas, it made me a prime candidate for mind control. My father's sexual abuse began in infancy before I could think to know what he was doing was wrong. But my brain knew it, shut down neuron pathways around the trauma, repressed it into the subconscious, so the rest of the mind could develop and function normally. This is an amazing defense mechanism that we're born with. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. What's bad is that we forgot that this happens in our brain. We forgot this happens to a child when they're sexually abused. We forgot that this is what repressed memory that so many people suffer from is all about. It's our mind-brain function. Since this is the way we were divinely designed, we've also been divinely designed with the ability to heal from it. We can heal from within. We have that capacity, but that has been repressed. That has been suppressed, along with information on our mind-brain function under national security. so that people forgot that we're able to heal, so that we forgot that we have been born with a defense against mind control. We have been made perfect. We just forgot by MKUltra being imposed on society for so long. These neuron pathways in my brain that shut down when my father subjected me to child pornography, and he began trafficking me to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. As more and more neuron pathways shut down around these traumas, there was no intercommunication. The brain's not firing to communicate sexual abuse with my father over to sexual abuse at the Blue Masonic Lodge, where I was being trafficked to politicians and to local law enforcement. My father was caught sending child pornography of me through the U.S. mail in 1960, and he was approached by a local politician that I'd been trafficked to since I was a toddler, and told he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would sell me into the CIA's MKUltra mind control project. My father did. National security was invoked on that case all the way back in 1960. And it gives us a quick view into how long our justice system has been compromised to allow for the proliferation of pedophilia, because it is a mind control agenda. This has been going on my whole life. It's got to stop. That local politician was Gerald Ford. And as his political career escalated, so too did my victimization in MKUltra, until I was used on a White House Pentagon level. So that's the very basis of my victimization, and one that I'm sure many people can relate to.
Okay. Alexia, I think you had a question.
Yeah. Do you think now with it being so much more widely accepted and talked about, that we can finally have some justice now after all these years of corruption?
I would hope so. We've got a long way to go to clean up our justice system, though. We've got to clean up the agencies around it. We've got to clean up the ones that are still covering up these crimes against humanity, because the director of National Intelligence Office was just raided by the CIA. They took over 40 boxes of MKUltra documents and 40 boxes of JFK documents that President Trump had requested be declassified. They came in and just confiscated against presidential order and in violation of us all. So, the cover-up continues. We got a long way to go to clean this mess up and ultimately restore justice to our system. But with so many people awake and aware now and demanding it, surely it's going to happen.
I think so. So go on. Let's hear. So you got started getting trafficking through President Ford. So tell us about your experience in MKUltra and what happened. What were they having you do? What was going on there? What did that look like?
Well, after I was sold into the project, I was trafficked at the Epstein Island of its time, Mackinac Island, Michigan. And there, the blackmail tapes were still being used, just as they were in the Blue Masonic Lodge. So these blackmail tapes that we hear about now, the Diddy tapes and everything else, these have been around my whole life, and haven't been used in them at such an early age. I was subjected to many of the perpetrators at Mackinac Island, Michigan, when George Romney was governor of Michigan. And he'd have people in like Pierre Trudeau, who was the Prime Minister of Canada at the time. He was an MKUltra master of individuals and nations, and very much for the pedophile agenda.
Now you said George Romney. That's Mitt Romney's father. Yes. Would you mind? So that's kind of has my attention. I think a lot of people here in Utah. Was he involved with this?
Absolutely, heavily involved in it, and an absolute leader in it. And there were so many meetings among these perpetrators there. And even Henry Kissinger was there, who would become my owner in MKUltra, U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd. I remember seeing Mitt back in the day. Mitt Romney was very militaristic, robotic, back then. And I'm sure that he was subjected to some level of MKUltra. I would certainly expect that given his father's propensity for it. His father was actively involved in what was known as the Order of the Rose, which was an alliance of the CIA and the Jesuits to come up with a more powerful form of mind control. The Jesuits knew about the effects of trauma on the human mind for generations. I mean, they learned about that through the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades. The spoils of those wars were the children. The Catholic orphanages were born, and those children were highly suggestible. And they found that they could be easily programmed into perpetuating the church. And the children were sexually abused, and the pedophile agenda of MKUltra grew strong within the Catholic Church and extended all the way to the Vatican that I know of. So they already had that information, and then the CIA had technological information on the effects of subliminals on the subconscious, the effects of harmonic frequencies, how they could vibrate the neuron pathways of the brain, and use that, combining those formula for mind control into a more powerful form of mind control that was heavily discussed with George Romney on being used in the Mormon church. They wanted to make the Mormon church a more mind-controlled church than what the Vatican had with the Catholic Church by adding the harmonic frequencies into the equation of the traumatic satanic abuse and the sexual abuse that was also to go on in the church. It had been discussed that this mind control would be such a strong formula that they would draw their intelligence agencies from it, especially the FBI. And there's an inordinate number of FBI that have come out of the Mormon church. They had decided
and CIA.
Yes, both. And they considered that after the Mormons had completed their missions, right fresh off their bicycles, they were recruited into the FBI or the CIA because they were already, conditioned by MKUltra mind control to do as they were told. And it's because ultimately there's not so many who are willingly complicit in this, and they needed to have vast numbers to carry out their agenda within corrupted agencies. So the Mormon church was the one that they picked for being the place where they could draw the intelligence agents from to continue and perpetuate MKUltra mind control throughout society and into the nation.
So go ahead, baby.
So in your understanding of it, how long has this been going on in the LDS Church, specifically in Utah?
As far back as I know that there was discussion on using the Osmonds as the Pied Pipers to lead people into the Mormon church. They were the first ones who really brought the LDS Church out publicly in such a big way. And they were given harmonic equipment to vibrate the neuron pathways of people's brains to make bigger stars out of them so that they could be Pied Pipers leading them into the Mormon church. So I'm acutely aware of that aspect. And, how long ago was that? That was quite a while back that the Osmonds came on the scene.
So let's do this, because I still want to finish your story. And then I think what would be very helpful, especially as we start to get into some of the nuances here, I think it'd be helpful to explain a little bit more about MKUltra, paperclip, Operation Mockingbird, or not Mockingbird, Mockingbird, Monarch, and paperclip. But let's finish your story, and then let's explain that to people, and then I'd be very interested to talk about what's going on in Utah, because I think it matters.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Monarch. Project Monarch is a sub project of MKUltra. It's the one that I was born into because of the multi-generational effects. It had been found in Himmler research that after 3 generations, any knowledge base, abuse base, or belief system becomes autogenic in the brain. It's genetically passed down. And that is what they were wanting to use to condition the population. So they had like a 100-year plan on this MKUltra that's supposed to really be ending with Agenda 2030. So that's supposed to be they should have 3 full generations. So MKUltra conditioned that it's creating genetically creating a compliant society and genetically creating people who won't even stand up to the sexualization of children and the whole pedophile agenda. We're seeing how that has taken hold on the nation and the world to allow for this. So the Project Monarch is the multi-generational aspect that was really intended for the whole global population. And it's one that they needed to have a lot of genetic information on. And again, the Mormon Church was the one that they thought should gather that genetic information and keep records on genetics so they could manipulate that further into their ultimate goal of total slave society that was aligned with artificial intelligence.
Okay. So you were trafficked by Byrd, which is interesting. He was a handler because we've had the Mormon Monarch,
J.R.
Sweet, who is also
Yeah.
a handler, was Byrd. So Byrd was apparently notorious there for that. And you were
Absolutely.
okay. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about your experience then in the program and with politicians and what they had you doing and some of the things that to help someone who is new to this understand what that would look like?
Well, Byrd became my owner when I was 13 years old. I met him at the Epstein Island of its time at Mackinac Island, and he declared himself my owner. As my owner, he appointed my handlers and which black ops I would be used in, who I would be prostituted to and when. And Senator Byrd was very much behind MKUltra mind control, not only of individuals and the pedophile agenda, but of nations and ultimately the world, because he was a globalist all along. So Senator Byrd appointed my first handler. He decided who would be my primary mind control programmer, which was Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. And he decided which military, NASA, and DARPA installations I would be sent to be programmed by him. And Aquino was so strong in all of that he had no limit to where he could be. He had a high enough clearance for MKUltra back then that he was at those various places. Senator Byrd also decided that I should be subjected to further trauma and sent me to the backwoods of Louisiana, where I was subjected to more occult ritual by my first appointed handler, Wayne Cox. Wayne Cox was a CIA assassin, a cult serial killer, and heavily involved in the Mormon Church to perpetuate drug and human trafficking and get the CIA infiltration into the Mormon Church for distributing the cocaine and also for the child sex trafficking operations and everything else. So
now those are
at
some
that
pretty
point,
strong claims. How are they doing that? Like, how are they using the church to do? You said to distribute drugs and trafficking. Is that what you said? he was doing?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the Catholic Church was already doing it in the Catholic orphanages and everything else. So this had been established a long time ago. Senator Byrd also had an office in the FBI building where he set up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as a catch net operation for trafficked children. And that allowed for CPS to be corrupted, the Child Protective Services, to further perpetuate the child sex trafficking operations, the human trafficking operations that were the ultimate funding mechanism of this globalist agenda. And the details of all this are in my 1995 testimony for Congress, Transformation of America. So people can have a full understanding how these roots of corruption became planted and how the Mormon Church became one more branch of their operations. It wasn't the number one branch. It was one of many that were being used. Senator Byrd also decided my second handler would be Alex Houston, who was a ventriloquist, stage hypnotist in the country music industry, and very much involved in MKUltra mind control and a huge distributor of CIA cocaine that fed directly into the Clinton cocaine operations. And the country music industry was heavily involved, so it made a good basis of distribution. Within that network was the Hendersonville, Tennessee Mormon Church. The Bishop's Warehouse was used for storing CIA cocaine so that it could be packaged for the country music industry to distribute throughout the country.
Really?
And that's one example of how the Mormon Church was being used in that. For one, people didn't think to look what was in those bishop warehouses, and the people who were working it were already under mind control, so they didn't pay any attention to what was actually being done.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little bit of I don't know, it's not pushback, but just because I actually went on a mission and had a phenomenal experience. Came back, and I would definitely say I was one that definitely didn't question, like if it came from authority, I just followed and just trusted. But I've even worked in those warehouses, and I think there's a lot of good people that go out and serve missions that are just it's the salt of the earth. And there's people that work in the warehouses that are like my mom's worked in those warehouses. She served missions in those warehouses, and she's very awake to the corruption. And I would say she's the one that taught me about a lot of these evils and these things when I was growing up. So I think that there's a varying degree. You have very good people who just don't know what's going on. And then I think you definitely have people that do know what's going on, who take advantage of the people.
Or complicit, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have some churches that are involved and many that aren't. There's a lot of good people in everything, including in the Catholic Church. And there's many people on the inside doing all they can to expose the corruption and stop the trafficking of children and to deal with that kind of corruption straight on. And it's not that the Mormons themselves would have chose to do that. I mean, I fully understand that. Having been a part of the Mormon Church myself and being programmed to do things I never would have done, and having been a part of that, and seeing good people that were actively involved in it too, just like there are in the Catholic Church. So as we expose a corruption, we've got to realize that there's good and bad in everything. There are good people who need to wake up and open their eyes to what's going on. As far as the cocaine distribution point in Hendersonville, Tennessee, that's not to say all Mormon bishop warehouses are being used in that capacity. That particular one was heavily involved. It was its sole purpose. So once I exposed that with the evidence, and that was and national security was even invoked on it because of all the evidence involved in the CIA's involvement, that was, shut down.
Wow.
And not used that way anymore. So, you shine a light of truth, things clean up. And that's ultimately what we need to do. Every place where we find corruption, whether it's in the church, in the school system, in politics, no matter where it is, we got to start shining that light of truth so that it stops.
Wow.
Now, did you say, I might have misheard you, that you were part of the Mormon church?
Yes.
So are you still
Yes.
an active member of the LDS church?
No, I'm not an active member in it or the Catholic Church. And, but, like I said, I know there's a lot of good people that are in it and exposing it. So, we need to open our eyes to that reality. And it's something that I became, encouraged by the efforts to clean the corruption up back with the Bishop Pace memo. So early on, he was right there exposing the vastness of the corruption that had already infiltrated the Mormon church. And I have the utmost respect for him and Dr. Corey Hammond, who was treating many of the survivors back in the early days before people had the term SRA. It was way back in the earliest days that there's been good people cleaning it up. And those good people had a strong impact on me and my healing, with the hope that people could see and start, effectively cleaning it up and protecting the children.
Wow. Wow. You've lived such an extraordinary life, and you've seen so much. And I would really encourage, everyone to, we'll get to your books towards the end. I want to make sure that people know how to find those and read up on those, but there's just so much to cover, and I'm just very thankful we have you here for a little bit. Would you mind explaining why trauma? Why? Because we talk about these stories and we bring these survivors on, and they talk about things that just the average person hears it and they're like, that just can't be real. Like, it's too violent. It's too horrific. Like, it's so over the top.
Even in our demand letters, we get comments like, the Prestons can't possibly believe, these people are accused of eating babies and it can't possibly be true. Do they really believe this? And we've heard it enough from so many people that we know it is, but how do you help bridge the gap to people that are relatively new to this, that these concepts just feel like not entirely possible?
We've got to understand our own mind-brain function. But again, that information has been suppressed for generations and withheld from mental health, from the education system, and from society as a whole. It's our birthright information. We need to understand how our brains respond to trauma. Whenever trauma occurs, it's like the conscious mind freezes in fright and leaves the subconscious mind wide open to being easily led and manipulated. It's when the trauma is so severe that it shuts down the neuron pathways and compartmentalizes that memory, repressing it deep into the subconscious so the rest of the mind can develop and function normally. That is dissociative identity disorder. That's the mind's sane defense to trauma too horrible to comprehend. We've got to understand how our brains respond to trauma so that we can safeguard our free thought when trauma occurs. Everyone got a taste of mind control. Everybody got a taste of MKUltra 2020 when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population. That traumatized the world. It traumatized everyone watching those numbers of all these people dying, and it was used as a trauma. They were just running the numbers to traumatize people. And it caused the conscious mind to freeze in fright and left the subconscious open to being easily led and manipulated. The most basic form of mind control is repetition. How many times did you hear mask up, social distance, get the injection?
Safe and
That's
effective.
a form of programming.
Safe and effective.
Yes, so the conscious mind is frozen fright, The subconscious is being bombarded with that repetition. That is how our brains respond to trauma. Now, for people like me who understood that, as soon as I saw what was going on, it was like, oh, this is MKUltra. I am not going to cooperate with that, and consciously chose not to. A lot of people consciously chose not to do that. But that constant bombardment caused most people to comply. Add to that, the masks are used in MKUltra to limit oxygen to the brain necessary for critical analysis-free thought. So the brain's being starved of oxygen. Again, this is understanding our own mind-brain function. And it causes depersonalization, where you can't see if someone's smiling or sneering. So the children started developing an identity disorder based on being masked up. They're traumatized, highly suggestible. Now they're being masked up where they're not getting sufficient oxygen to their brain to think clear. So these are all components of MKUltra that affect the brain. When we understand that, we say, no, I'm not going to limit oxygen to my brain. We need that air. We need nutrition to keep our brains firing properly. We need good rest. We need pure water. We need safety. All of that keeps our brains firing brilliantly like they should be. So ultimately, the most basic thing people have got to understand is their own mind-brain function, how our brains respond to trauma, so they can safeguard against it going forward.
You all need to stop drinking tap water immediately. This is what a tap water pipe looks like. They're incredibly old, loaded with heavy metals and rust. And the water itself is full of toxins too. Pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptors, forever chemicals, heavy metals, and hundreds more. This is what my water distiller looks like after filtering the waters, and that's not chocolate milk left over. You could go online and see exactly what's in your water. According to the EWG site, in Los Angeles, there are over 30 plus carcinogenic chemicals in your tap water. Do not go near tap water. Do not drink it. Do not shower in it. Don't even look at it. Shocks me how few people realize this.
You know, I'm really thankful for my mother. From the time I was young, she was always one of these health food fanatics. I've been blessed with good health because of my mother, because she fed us healthy food. She avoided the processed foods, the garbage food that you get at fast food restaurants. And one of the things I learned from a very young age is the dangers of what is in the tap water. We need healthy water. There's many things we could promote on this short show. And as you can imagine, we've had many people approach us to promote products. But I will not stand for things I do not believe in. I am a very principle-driven individual. And I believe that this is something we cannot be drinking tap water. I love and completely stand behind Century. I know there's a lot of options out there. And I'll just tell you this, Century H2O, the reason I stand with them is, one is it purifies everything out. We've done the EPA tests. We don't just do tests that test particles like many of these saltwater systems. They do the EPA test. It pulls out every toxin better than any system out there. But just as important as getting rid of the toxins, when you drink water the way God intended, it's not just stripped water. It has minerals in it. It has things that are good for you in it. The water from Century H2O that we use, that we feed our pets, it has the minerals in it. It has oxygen in it. It is high alkaline water. It has magnesium in it. It is water that is not just clean, it is healthy. If it's something you're looking for, please go to our website, wearethepeople.org, go to wellness. There's 3 options. 1, whole house. That's what we have. I shower in it. We bathe in it. I don't want that garbage on me or my family or my kids. In fact, I've got these systems for my kids. 2, if that's not an option for you, you're not ready for that, you can get something just for under your sink, which is going to get your drinking water under control. And for those of you who have that or are looking for another option, an option that everyone should have is, we think about emergency preparedness. We in this state understand the importance of having food, but how long can you go without water? When the average person when you're going to need at least a gallon a day to survive. Well, they have a system for preparedness. It's a system that you can pump water out of literally Utah Lake, the most toxic, filthy water, and it will filter that into water that is better than you can get anywhere, better than any RO water. And you can take that with you. To me, that should be a part of everybody's emergency preparedness plan. And you can go to our website. There's those 3 options. You can find it. It'll take you to Century H2O's website. Put in our code, We Are the People. You're going to get a 10% discount. These guys are great. They don't take it. They could charge far more for their product. I value this company as a God-fearing, good company. It's why I like working with them. And they believe and support you and our cause. So check them out. Make sure you are protecting your family with the most important thing. We are made of water, and we need to be drinking clean, purified, healthy water. Thank you so much. And let's get back to the show. And thank you guys for all your support. We honestly, I can't get ever on here and not tell you how much we love you and appreciate you. I think another thing that taught us, and I think another analogy is look at 9/11. After 9/11, the first thing we gave up all of our freedoms, the Patriot Act, which has hurt people on all sides, all of us, and given the federal government far more power than we should have ever given it. But it came after trauma, fear, and we give up our security. And I think tyrants know that. But I think another thing we learned from COVID and that we can learn from mind control is the danger of not thinking for ourselves, not using our own judgment. And that's one of the problems I have, again, we're focused on Utah. And one of the things I'm concerned about Utah is all these little cults that pop up. We have so many, little cults. I mean, and to me, it stems from a culture problem in the state where we have been, and maybe this ties to what you were talking about with Romney, but where we have been but programmed to just trust, follow. Even if our thinking is out of alignment with that, we just follow. And I think that's dangerous. And it was dangerous during COVID because when that came out is put on a mask, get the shot, get the next one, stay home, don't socialize with people, be alone. People had their soul in their heart trying to tell them one thing, authority is telling them another. And to me, that was just an important principle that I think all of us need to be aware of, that we have a soul, we have the light of Christ within us, we have a conscience, and it is our responsibility to follow that first and foremost.
Right.
No, they're not on the arm of flesh, because the arm of flesh can be corrupted. I don't care. There's been no time in history where religion, where politicians, where governments have not been corrupted. And then to me, this is a reminder that our anchor needs to be in God alone. And we've got to follow that inner voice, not rely on just follow the crowd, follow the herd, or follow, some religious leader, especially when the religious leader, the prophet's telling you to take the jab and that it's safe and effective and it's a literal godsend. So repeating the same mind control narrative. That was, for me, one of the first things because I'd always been under this, idea of that following the prophet, that he can never lead you astray. And then all of a sudden that happened. I was like, wait a minute, my soul tells me this is wrong. My heart tells me this is wrong, that I shouldn't be taking this jab, that this is a lie, and this is used to control, manipulate the people, and it's dangerous. But then all of a sudden I hear the leadership of my church telling me, and it's like, okay, I'm in a difficult spot. Do I do what I've always done, follow the prophet, or do I follow the light within? And I remember having a difficult time going to church because they wanted us to mask up, and I wouldn't wear a mask because I felt like it was betraying myself. And that was a difficult time, wasn't it, baby?
Definitely.
It was for everyone in that regard, especially because we've been conditioned for generations to look to authority, to look to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion to tell us how to live our lives. When in fact, when we go within and align with the divine, we're blessed with that ability to navigate through it all along. But with so many generations affected, it's become genetically encoded, where we need to break that genetic chain. Soul is stronger than genetics. We can easily do that. And I know that is what these perpetrators fear. Haven't been around them, deep in the Washington, D.C. swamp. I can assure you they are not like us. They do not like us. They're a very dark, negative, low vibration energy force. They feed off of low vibration, dark, negative energy force. They feed off of fear and trauma. They feed off of division and hatred, negativity. That's their vibration. Their greatest fear is the strength of the human spirit. Their greatest fear is the infinite power of love. It's too high of a vibration. They can't control it. They can't manipulate it. It's our saving grace. But we forgot. And the only thing they can do is use mind control to shut down those neuron pathways and dumb us down where we forget to think for ourselves, and we just start blindly following that authority like we've been conditioned for generations, instead of going within and gathering the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. It's our victory when we remember who we are and why we're here, and we align with that and live that love. It's game over. They lose, and they know it. They are so scared that this truth is going to come out. This is truth that makes us free. We have been born with the victory, and they know it. We just forgot. We got to remember that. We all need to stay strong like you do and follow that light inside instead of authority. We got to remember our life's purpose.
Yeah, and one of the things you talk about the division. And, studying the political side of things, Machiavelli and there's people talk about if you want to destroy a country, you get them at war with each other, divide and conquer. And you see that in this country. You see us so busy fighting the left versus the right, and the people, and politicians putting issues out there that put the people at war with each other. And then what we do is we say, well, it's, we trust our side. We trust I'm a Republican. I'm going to trust Republicans.
Right.
I'm going to trust Republicans. And Democrats, I'm going to trust Democrats. And that makes us easy to manipulate and mind control as well. But the reality is, from what I understand, you were trafficked by people on both parties. It's not two parties. How would you define what's going on back there?
Oh, absolutely. It's who is involved, who's complying with the globalist agenda and who isn't. And they can wear either disguise. They can either be a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't matter. It's like the division among churches too, and that's something that needs to stop. I think love for the children should unite us all above and beyond these imposed differences and these imposed divisions. We need to unite, because united, we can all gather that strength of spirit. Right now we got so many people shining their light that it's exposing what's going on in the darkness, and we're finally seeing it. And I remind people all the time, what we're seeing isn't new. What's new is we're finally seeing it. And in that process, we're seeing that we have all the power. They only have as much power as we give them or let them steal. We've got the victory. We've got it all. And if we all shine our light together and shine so bright, we can eradicate their darkness once and for all. They don't belong here. They don't belong here feeding off our children. We got to protect our children. And it's time we remember who we are and why we're here and live that purpose. Start living the love we are and effectively protect our children.
I love that.
So how do we start waking people up, whether it's the cognitive dissonance or actually someone who's been through mind control or SRA that might not even know yet or become awakens to their own situation?
By living our love. We can't wake up for other people, and we can't, it's ultimately it's a spiritual warfare, because without free thought, there's no free will. Without free will, there's no soul expression. Without soul expression, we lose discernment of truth, compassion for each other. We lose our ability to go within and align with the divine and gather the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love to live our life's purpose. So in that regard, this mind control is a spiritual warfare. So to wake someone up from mind control, it's their personal journey the same way that their spiritual journey is personal. We can't save someone. Only God, only that is their own person's journey. So in that regard, the best thing we can do is live the love we are, shine our light so bright that it lights the path for them, and keep telling truth. Truth makes us free. And eventually, truth never goes away. So it's like seeds of truth planted. Eventually, they're going to see it. We just keep doing exactly what we're doing right now with absolute love and compassion for humanity, and realize that, I think we all saw it with 2020 when people would scream at each other, wear the mask, take it off, wear the mask. It doesn't work. You can't hear over programs screaming in your ears. So, the only thing we can do is just not wear the mask and smile and show people we're all okay. You're buying into an illusion, so really that's the best thing we can do.
We've had survivors on the show waking up at different levels, some that are just waking up and putting these memories together and pieces together, some that have been awake for some time and still getting new memories. How has that journey been for you in your awakening about everything that you've been through?
I am so fortunate to have healed from within myself, because ultimately, intelligence insider Mark Phillips was working the highest levels of intelligence mind sciences to preserve the sanctity of free thought. Mark was a spook. He could wear any hat. He could be CIA, FBI, NSA, Secret Service, anything he needed to be. He was that high level. And what he saw from that level, the infiltration of this corruption and blackmail operations into all aspects of our government and the way that our system is structured. He saw how MKUltra mind control was being used on innocent citizens. By the time he saw little children being taken in and out of the White House, he decided to do something about it. Mark was also livid to have found our birthright information on mind-brain function buried under national security. He couldn't release that information. The only thing he could do, because he couldn't release it because he was bound by laws of sedition, the only thing he could do was take action. So how fortunate for me, he lifted my daughter and me right out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp, all the way back in 1988, and handed me keys to my own mind. He didn't deprogram me. He reminded me that it's within us all to heal. We're born that way. We're blessed with that resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. And so since I was safe for the first time, the neuron pathways in my brain started opening. I started writing out the memory, because Mark told me that the pen is mightier than the sword. Pick up a pen and write out your memory, because the very act of moving a pen activates the logic, critical analysis part of the brain. So it shifts that emotionally incomprehensible trauma over to logic, where it's written out on paper and consciously seen. Healing happens psychiatrically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything all at once with that one simple little brain hack, just moving a pen. It opens neuron pathways. Again, mind control shuts them down. We need them open. We need our brain firing. So like if we get writing by hand back in the school system, we can stop the indoctrination of our children. It will activate the part of their brain so they can know how to think again instead of being taught what to think.
And that's been a modality that I think a lot of our survivors have used time and time again to open up the memories, and the floodgates have really opened from that. So it's interesting how such a simple thing can be such an effective tool. Now, the counter argument to that by many of the naysayers is the false memory syndrome. So what do you say to those preaching that these are implanted memories, either by therapists or by some distorted memory that these survivors have had?
Yes, the false memory is something that's easily avoided, because implanted memory does not have smell. It does not have the aspects of life. So since you've already got a photographic memory and you're writing it out, you smell the smells. You look at it through the eyes of whatever age you were at that time. You can feel the season. You can feel whether or not it's spring or summer, or, you get so many different aspects in real life that are in real memory that are not in a false memory. TV doesn't have smells. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work that way. So there's ways to be able to discern on memory. And the worst thing is mental health has been deliberately taught wrong. We've got the founder of the American Psychiatric Association, Ewan Cameron, MKUltra doctor, absolutely involved in MKUltra, caught with his involvement in all of that. And he made sure that mental health was taught wrong to perpetuate mind control, to intrude on the brain, which is, the brain is not going to heal when it's intruded on with hypnosis. Hypnosis is an intrusion. That's what a lot of mind control uses. You can't heal it with hypnosis. People would ask Mark Phillips, they'd say, well, are you using hypnosis on Cathy? And he'd say, that'd be like drowning a fish. She needs to be dehypnotized. But mental health is taught to use that kind of method. Also, talking about trauma before you've written it out, talking about it reinforces it in the brain and keeps it compartmentalized. So they're taught to do group therapy and get everybody talking to each other. That further perpetuates it. And not only that, but they're already in this highly suggestible state from the trauma. And so they're hearing other people's trauma, and that becomes their trauma. So the false memory foundation, that was founded by the CIA, was to further perpetuate what mental health had been taught, so that no survivors of true trauma, ones that had healed from within themselves, would be heard. And it was used as a huge distraction. False memory is, again, easily overcome by healing from within self, writing out memory, asking yourselves the proper questions that are all detailed in PTSD Time to Heal. Those are the healing methods Mark taught me. And he couldn't release them, but I could, because it was my experience to heal with them, that birthright information. And so I released it. I'm not bound by laws of sedition. And I've got it on my website for anyone to apply to themselves. And really, everyone everywhere needs this information, because it's our birthright information. PTSD Time to Heal is not about me. It's about us all. It's about our birthright to heal, the resiliency of body, mind, and spirit, and how we can access that and apply it to ourselves. So it's available for everybody. Right there on my website at trance-formation.com. I have it in ebook form. It's secured there with a pay what you can if you can option, so that survivors who usually have no money anyway, or survivors who don't need a money trail going to the fact that they're healing, can just zero out costs, get the information, and start applying it. Beautiful. So it's not about making money. It's about empowering people to heal. We'll put a link down below. I've got two questions for you. The first, here in Utah, people talk about in the scripture, secret combinations. It's one of the most common things in the scriptures about that, secret combinations and that they'd be in our day. And yet we're the last people to be able to actually see them when they're there. How deep does this go in our problem? Because you see about Epstein, you see it seems like it's pretty entrenched. How entrenched is this corruption in our government? And if it's that deep, the next question is, why isn't anyone talking about it? I think that's something people ask. Well, the media is not giving voice to it. Follow the money, and we're going to find out that it just goes to the same handful of perpetrators at the top, the same handful of puppet masters that are operating in secrecy and using their media voice to make it look like there's more of them than there are. It's like pulling back the proverbial wizard's curtain and find it out. It's just one guy pulling levers, because that's the reality of it. And they're using mind control, blackmail, coercion, threats to families' lives, and many aspects of manipulation in order to appear more powerful and more numbered than they are. There's just a handful of them. It's absolutely inexcusable that we allow this handful of perpetrators to manipulate our brilliant minds and lives anymore. But we need the truth.
Well,
to
look
come
at our
out.
politicians. Our politicians are all horrible. None of them will stand up for what's right. None will stand up for Epstein, except for the 3 or 4 that did, all got removed. They all feel like they're owned. I mean, how bad is it? You say it's just a handful, but I don't think it's a handful. I think there is I think you have when you talk about the swamp, I think there's a lot of people in both parties. Epstein shows it. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of people who are involved in these evil things. Just like here in Utah, it's not just a handful of people involved in this stuff in this state. Like, the more we understand, you have family lines, you have, like, this is deep. Like this, there is real darkness, and it's not just a handful of people in this state. And I can't imagine it's a handful of people in D.C. and the rest of these politicians are all trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that extremely well stated. But you've got to consider the multi-generational aspect that's coming into play on this that we were talking about. So we've got the generational roots, and the generational chains have got to be broken, and it takes truth in order for people to understand that. We've got to get the truth out there, which is very difficult with the media controlled to the degree that they are. Also, one of the first national traumas when these perpetrators really took strong control of our nation was with the Kennedy assassination. And that was a trauma that traumatized the nation. And I had a deep inside view into all of that since Gerald Ford was head of the Warren Commission that covered up the Kennedy assassination. He was awarded the presidency as a result for covering that up, because that's when they took control. When they took control at that time, it was in the wake of the Kennedy assassination that the electronic voting machines came into place. Follow the money on those first Diebold machines, and it goes right to George Bush and Dick Cheney, same handful of perpetrators over and over. And that's what I'm referring to about, the handful. It's the same ones over and over. So they had these electronic voting machines that were rigged since their inception to place people in key positions of power in order to perpetuate the globalist agenda that was brought into the United States with Project Paperclip. So we imported all these Nazi and fascist scientists, made sure that they were placed in positions of power and influence, and the Kennedy assassination was a major turning point. So to clean this mess up, we got to clean up elections. We got to dare to see what's going on within our own churches, our own communities, and our own family lineage. We've got a long way to go to clean this up because of the vast number of people who are affected and complicit either willingly or unwillingly.
Well, and I think it's interesting you say that, because we got into this arena by our understanding of political corruption. And when the deeper we went, we realized that SRA was the underbelly of it all. So I think cleaning up that and bringing awareness to that will solve for all those election integrity problems and corrupt politicians, because that's what's holding them all in their power positions today. So what do you think will be their downfall ultimately? Is it that they've just been operating under these ancient rules and rituals and hierarchies that has become almost predictable by the way they'll act and the way they'll perpetrate and create these generational lines of abuse and perpetuating it? How can we bring them down?
Yeah. I think we're right in the middle of a spiritual and mental evolution, as more and more people wake up. It's making all the difference in the world, and realizing that local action has national impact is an important part of this. And you two are just shining that light so bright right here where you are and making all the difference right there. This is what's bringing them down. This is what's making the difference. It's you and me. It's like, there's a huge swamp in Washington, D.C., but it can't drain from the top down by one person trying to drain it and saying, hey, we got a swamp, let's drain it. No, it's up to all of us to drain it from the bottom up. And in order to effectively drain it, we got to know where those roots of corruption are that are clogging the swamp drain. And we're going to have to take a long, hard look. It's going to take some time. And in the meantime, we just got to keep doing our part.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up earlier the media and the propaganda in the media. And bringing this back to Utah, we just saw a great example of that with David Levitt. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hamblin case, but after fleeing to Scotland after his failed re-election as district attorney in Utah County, much of the known ritual abuse came out because of that case. And he's been hiding out in Scotland in a castle. But when it became time to get relevant again, which has been just this last few weeks, the media's run excellent cover stories on him, talking about what a great job him and his wife are doing renovating a castle in Scotland. Almost like we can completely forget about the drama that went on in 2022 when he came out and basically did a press conference confessing to all of these things. So it's an interesting dynamic when you do have the media running cover and trying to save face, but at the same time, it's also shining a light in its own way, because the more people that are paying attention, they'll become aware by people like you and us, and hopefully more people that will take this message and spread it so that they can say, well, yeah, no, that could be a good cover story, but let's look at what's really going on here.
Are you familiar with some of those stories of David Levitt and David Hamblin and some of the Utah cases?
To some degree. There are so many cases like that going on everywhere, but they're raising awareness for people, and they are starting to see what the media is doing to the degree where they're gravitating to podcasts like what you all are doing rather than the mainstream media. There's more and more people turning away from that now because they're fed up with being misdirected and misled every time by the latest perversion, diversion, or whatever else they're going to parade in front of us, the latest sparkly to say, look over here. People are wary of that.
I just have one other question. So you mentioned Epstein Island and Mackinac Islands, and I was just talking about the castles in Scotland, and who else knows where these trafficking networks are. A lot of our survivors have come forward and talking about the underground tunnel networks, especially the ones that exist here in Utah. And I feel like that's an easy thing to prove, but do you have any experience in these underground tunnel networks, whether here in Utah or elsewhere in the States?
Question.
Less on underground tunnel networks. There's tunnels like from DC to their Greenbrier bunker, where they were going to hide out. There's those are the kind that I'm more familiar with. But back when I was being used in the 80s primarily, people didn't have cell phones everywhere, so they didn't have a camera on them everywhere, and they weren't catching everything, so they didn't have to hide so much. I think they're having to hide more. So I'm not going to say that there aren't those underground networks, but the thing I was familiar with was like the underworld of Disney World. Which was a DARPA programming epicenter, or the underground of Bohemian Grove, where they had their underground bunker for carrying out their nefarious deeds. And, there's different undergrounds that I'm familiar with, but as far as the networks that the younger survivors talk about today, I wouldn't doubt it because they're having to hide more, but it's not something that I'm so familiar with.
So you talk about a lot of the agendas of these people in MKUltra and the mind control and even the satanic is to bring in a one world order or this one world government, correct? Alexia and I, again, we started stuff trying to expose corruption in this state. And one of the things we kept seeing is that Utah was in bed with all these globalist organizations, the World Economic Forum and their agendas, the United Nations, the only place the United Nations meets outside of New York, which again, their initial headquarters was 666 Rockefeller. I mean, should be a red flag. But the only place they meet in America is Salt Lake. They've said that the birthplace of the fourth industrial revolution, which is this absolute, when you study that, I encourage people to study it because it is absolute global tyranny. It is the surveillance state. It is AI integrated into you, is living in these smart cities. And you have people, leaders in our state, saying that Utah is going to be the cradle of that fourth industrial revolution. You find out our so much of our tithing funds are going to these UN agendas. And we kept saying Utah is ground zero on the political stuff. And now all of a sudden we learn about, this infiltration in the church and how the church is funding so much of this stuff. Tell us your thoughts on what you've understood. We talked about Utah a little bit earlier, but let's, as we start to come to a close, share with us why you think Utah is we're building smart cities. We're supposed to have this first smart city. They just broke ground for it, just barely. I mean, Utah's pushed digital ID. We already have it. It's already in pilot. All these globalist things, they are being pushed in this state. And then we find out we have this huge underbelly of SRA and this satanic network here that literally that runs the power structure of this state. Tell us your thoughts on that.
That was the intention all along. Like I said, the CIA had the technological advancements, and they were bringing that into the Mormon church, and Salt Lake City was just definitely targeted for that advancement technologically, in addition to the trauma base that the Jesuits had known about with the ritual abuse and the sexual abuse of children. So it's no surprise to hear this. That was what the intention was all along, and what the plan was for the combining to create the most powerful form of mind control. And I think that you're seeing a lot of aspects of that right there in Salt Lake City. It's no surprise that the UN is so heavily involved in all of that, because that was the plan from the get-go.
I guess as we wrap up, you had experience with the Romney family. Any other high-profile families that you had experience with?
Yes, the Romneys, I do think it's interesting how Mitt Romney himself is such an example of the Mormon Jesuit aspect, from his bit in Massachusetts, and then in Salt Lake City and in Utah. He's doing exactly what he was conditioned for, born for, and programmed for. I don't know to what extent he experienced any MKUltra, if it was something inherent that he got from his father to perpetuate it. But, they're definitely strong perpetrators right there. I was exposed to numerous perpetrators. They are named in Transformation of America, which is why national security was invoked on that testimony. I encourage people to look into it. They can get it on Audible or secured on my website at trans-formation.com. Beware of free ebooks out there. They've been altered to promote the New World Order and divert people, just like the media does. Look over there, it's them, it's him. When in fact, all the names are right there, including George Bush Sr., who also has had a lot of influence and association in Utah that I know of, and involved with the Hinckleys and John Hinckley Jr. Also, I know that you've had the Charlie Kirk assassination right there, and it was my understanding that Charlie Kirk was waking so many people up that they were needing to eliminate him. When you look at the Turning Point USA Board of Directors, you've got General Valey, who wrote the book Mind Wars with Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. That is that's a psychological warfare using terror to control and manipulate minds that has been used for generations. So you've got infiltrations everywhere. George Bush Sr. was one of the highest, most influential in MKUltra and selling our nation out to the globalist agenda, along with his good friend Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, They're all named. They're in detail in my testimony. So these perpetrators, we got to understand that they're part of an agenda, and knowing who they are, they need to be taken down. We need to see some justice. They need to be exposed. We need to save our children and lock Hillary Clinton up. That would be a good start. But at the same time, there's going to be someone else to take their place unless we wise up to what this agenda entails, realize what MKUltra mind control is all about, and then evolve with the knowledge that's our defense against it going forward. So, I strongly encourage people to understand the agenda, know who the perpetrators are, but also know that they'll just be replaced unless we wise up and start protecting our minds going forward. When trauma occurs, pick up a pen and paper, write out your fear, write out your trauma. Keep your brain firing with using that pen. Add a solution, so that you make your brain fire in more ways. Lift yourself above the pit of negativity. Deal with the trauma and the realities, but then add a solution to it. Think in those terms and get your brain firing, because that'll give you a clear view forward. It's something that we all need to do for ourselves. We all need to protect our brains. We need to expand our thinking, shut off our devices and our TV, get out in nature. Let animals take us back to our senses. They have strong senses. Reattach, reground to the earth, and above all, align with the divine. Know who you are, why you're here, and start living your life's purpose in light of love. And ultimately, that's going to do more than any justice that we could possibly see with a judge banging a gavel on a person or two. We need to see the ultimate justice of positive change through public awareness.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate you two for raising that awareness. You're amazing.
Alexia, any last questions?
Well, we think you're amazing too, Cathy, and we appreciate all the insight and all you've done on the national stage and globally to bring attention to this. You really are a pioneer in that. So thank you for all that you do. But I guess the one thing that I would really say to wrap up is what stuck with me was your quote, "You're not responsible for programmed actions, abusers are." So I think it's always good to leave a message of hope for the survivors that might be listening in their healing journey or their awakening. Is there anything else you want to leave with that survivor community as they start to work through their own deprogramming?
Yes, I mean, that is a very important one right there, that we're not responsible for what we did under mind control. We've seen horrible things. We've experienced horrible things. What I was programmed for in drug and human trafficking operations is just absolutely atrocious. And I'm so grateful I had Mark Phillips to tell me that I'm not responsible for what I was programmed to do. Even people who caved into getting the injection or masking up their children, that are dealing with horrendous guilt and reverberations from that, need to understand they were programmed. They're not responsible. Their abusers are. They need to be held accountable for those actions. But most and equally as important, Mark told me, he said, now that you are aware, you are responsible for all your actions going forward. So we need to all take self-responsibility and realize that when we align with the divine within, live the love we are, and do everything true to soul with purpose, that is the ultimate victory, the ultimate healing, the ultimate justice, the ultimate revenge. The greatest thing that we can do for ourselves and for humanity is to live the love we are, live our purpose, and align with the divine, and celebrate the miracles that are unfolding around us all the time, because they are. See those two. Not just stay focused on healing. Embrace the beauty of life.
Cathy, it's really just beautiful to sit with you. And I hope our audience can appreciate the beauty of this woman, the light that she exudes. and especially in contrast of what she has been through as a child, the horrific, the things unimaginable, and they are imaginable to anyone who's listened to our show and listened to what survivors have been through. She has been through everything you can imagine and more in some cases. But this is the beautiful thing about Christ. This is the beautiful thing about what we are capable of, is from going from such things, the unimaginable, to turning your life around and becoming a beacon of light to changing the world, in which Cathy has done. And it hasn't been easy. You know, when she testified in Congress 95, and for how many years do people call it satanic panic and false memory? And they tried to make a mockery of so many of you survivors out there. But Cathy didn't give up. She was relentless. She knew that telling the truth would set her free and set us free. And so I just want to thank you, Cathy. I've always felt in my heart as I started getting to know some of these survivors, that it is these individuals who have seen and touched the depths of hell themselves, that they've done literal physical warfare with the adversary in going through this abuse. I believe that many, if not all, that God pulled out of there have a purpose, and that purpose is he rescued them for a reason. And I believe it is you, these survivors, who are leading the fight, showing us the true battle that we are fighting, the true nature of good and evil, and giving us a chance to stand into the gap and fight on the right side. And I want to thank you for being one of God's clearly chosen leaders in that, and showing us the battle and helping us to be able to orient ourselves in the battle, orient ourselves in why we're here at such a time as this. So, Cathy, thank you.
Thank you.
And could you just remind our listeners where they can find you and how they can help support you?
And your books?
Yes, my website, trance-formation.com, trance-formation.com. And all my books are secured there. They're all on Audible. I encourage everyone to look into them and know this truth that makes us free.
Yeah, and to our listeners, Alexia and I love you. We appreciate you, both the survivors out there and those who have hearts to feel and who have souls that do not allow them to sit by quietly when this type of injustice is ripping through our nation and our backyards. You were sent for such a time as this, and I'm just thankful and honored when I see you in the comments, when I see you standing and not being silent, when I see you standing and deciding to be vocal, just as, you know, these survivors are speaking up, and that is our power. It is the power of the logos that we all have. It is our greatest weapon. It is more powerful than the sword, and each of you have the ability to talk to other people, to share to wake other people up to the nefarious things that are happening in our backyard and set them free. There is no greater power than the truth. And I just thank you for choosing to stand. Thank you for choosing to comment. Thank you for talking to your neighbors, because, you know, again, the power is not in politicians. The power is not in people that set themselves up as shepherds. The power is in the small and weak, the regular, the people, the individuals. It's not in party lines. It is in you. And I'm just thankful, as we've been able to get to know so many of you, to look in your eyes and see the fire and the zeal and the love and the compassion. And I know these things are hard. It's very painful to see, especially for those in the church, to hear stories and hear about this that's within our own church, but it is in every church. It is in the government. It is in both parties. And the most dangerous thing we can do is put our head in the sand, because that allows more children to suffer. And God did not send us to the earth and wake us up and open our eyes to such calamities for us to choose to look away. He showed us these things because he expects us to do something. And that most powerful thing you can do is open your mouth. So again, Cathy, our deepest love to you from Utah. I hope you have a chance to come through and watch the video and see the comments. You'll find that you have an army here of people who, I say Utah is ground zero, and I mean it. The nefarious things happening here are unbelievable. But I believe there is more light in this state, more incredible patriots, more incredible people who just refuse, on both sides of the aisle, people who have character, who are not willing to sit by silently. And this is why it's the heart of the battle. So I hope you get a chance to look through the comments and see some beautiful people here.
And come visit us soon.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you all. Thank you for that. And it's been a treat for all of us. And to the incredible woman who orchestrated this, set this up with Cathy, because we're so busy, we can hardly keep track of doing our own things. And we have an incredible woman who got in touch with Cathy for us and arranged this. And we just have the deepest love and respect for her and everybody who chooses to play a role in this. So God bless you all, and we'll see you on the next show. Hey, thank you guys. I have just the greatest love for survivors. You know that. And people always ask, Jason, what can we do? What can we do? I stand completely and firmly behind Ashley Smith and her organization, Still Waters Healing Foundation. I'm going to have her share a little bit of what she's doing, and we're going to encourage you to help her as she reaches out to help these incredible survivors in their healing.
I'm the founder and director of Still Waters Healing Foundation, and as an SRA survivor myself, I created this space for survivors of sexual abuse, SRA, and human sex trafficking, where they can find healing and safety and stillness inside community. The heart of the foundation is found in Psalms chapter 23, and we learned there that even though these survivors have walked through the valley of the shadow of death, the Lord can restore their souls and lead them beside still waters. With this heart of the foundation, we teach survivors to bring stillness back into their bodies, to their nervous system, to their minds, their emotions, and ultimately their soul, with safe support and in community. We begin with our Open Waters monthly in-person gatherings where survivors experience nervous system education, somatic healing, and practical tools to empower their healing to help them move forward in their journey. We're expanding our trusted network of professionals, offering a range of healing modalities and therapies so each survivor can find what truly supports their individual journey as well as their community healing. And from there, we move into deeper programs and an immersive retreats with our first retreat coming this fall, where we spend 3 days going into deeper healing. And our website is stillheals.org, and this is where you can join or donate.
Ash, you're awesome. Thank you for doing that. And I'm going to ask you guys, you are so incredible. Our audience does so much to fight and stand on for this battle of light and dark. I know you guys are generous. You've been so generous with us, with Alexia and I, especially with our lawsuit, and we have the greatest love and appreciation for all of your sacrifices. I am going to ask you to make a sacrifice and help Ashley and her organization. I believe in her. I believe that this is why she is on this earth. I believe this is why she has been rescued from what she has been through, is so that she can lead this effort. And so I'm going to ask you, please go to her website, make a donation, help her make a difference and be part of the transforming of some of these incredible lives of these individuals and helping them heal. Thank you guys so much.